What's up everyone, Scott here from Chernobyl Studios, and welcome to the complete guide to recording guitars at home. Now, I've done a couple of videos like this many years ago, like I'm talking like 2017, 2018. They're old, they're still getting a lot of comments, but I wanted to update this because, I've learned a lot of stuff since then, and I really wanted to create a free resource for people who are just starting to record at home, something that's actually useful and will actually help them get going. So this is a completely free PDF guide that I spent the last 4 days or so creating, and it's an actual helpful piece of content. It's not just like 1 or 2 pages of cheat sheet stuff. It's about 18 pages, as you can see here, of everything that a beginner would need to know. So if you already are in guitar tone mastery, or you already have some experience with this, you probably don't need this, but I have one thing to ask of you. So if you are already in guitar tone mastery, or you already have a pretty good idea of how to do this on your own, please leave a comment on this video. Let's make this video one of the most helpful free guides on the internet for people who are just starting. So leave a comment about like what DAW you use, what process you use to record guitars, maybe some tips or tricks that you've learned along the way, perhaps one of the biggest mistakes that you used to make that you finally figured out how to fix, or so you don't have as much trouble. And put that down in the comments, so people who are just seeing this video, downloading this PDF, and then seeing other people's experiences, so we can really actually help people get started recording. So this PDF right here is completely free. There's a link down below to go ahead and download it. It's everything, talking about a DAW, audio interface recommendations, amp simulator recommendations, most of which are free. Okay, talking about how to set up for recording, whether you should double track or quad track, how to deal with red light fever, as it's called. Okay, recording tips. Okay, how to set up your interface to record so you have the lowest latency possible. Everything that a beginner would need to know, to include a little bit of basic processing. I decided to put some small tips about basic processing and the plugins you actually would need to use. That's a little bit different. That's going beyond just recording. That we're already into the mixing phase here. But I was like, when you're recording yourself, you probably want to do a little bit of mixing. So I put some stuff in here about mixing. And as I said, this thing is a free, comprehensive guide. Tons of tips and tricks and things that you need to know to get started, so you don't end up wasting a lot of time making silly mistakes, basically, just because you're not sure how to do something. So I put this together, very comprehensive, lots of information here, and if you are absolutely just starting, this is going to be a godsend piece of information, because it's going to help you get started quickly the right way without making a lot of the mistakes that I made when I first started, back in the early 2000s and such. So yeah, completely free. Link is down below in the description. Go ahead and check that out. Now, in this video, I'm going to do some visual guidance of some things that are in the PDF. So in this video, we're going to talk about recreating this. I'm going to re-record this live in this video, and I'm going to talk about some of the things that I do. I'm going to show you 2 settings that I changed in Cubase to make recording easier. I'm also going to show you how to change the buffer settings. I'm going to show you how to insert tracks, how to route them. So we're just going to really cover the basics here. So as I said, if you already kind of have a good grasp on this, the video might not be for you, but please share it for people who are just getting started. And as I said, please leave a comment down below. Give some helpful advice for people who are just starting. All right, so here's what we are going to recreate. Let's just go ahead and play it. Okay, and just to be perfectly clear, there is no mastering or anything going on here. I'm clicking here, you can see you can do it here. I only have stuff for guitars here. Okay, I have the amp simulator and then stock plugins for processing. Okay, so just to prove that this works and that I know what I'm doing, so that this is actually going to be a helpful video. So The first thing that we need to talk about are the Cubase settings that I've changed. I've changed 2 of them. So let me just mute this for now. The first thing that I changed is how the cursor interacts when I'm recording. When you press play in most DAWs, you press play, all right? And then when you stop, the cursor generally is going to stop where you press stop. Now, if you're recording guitar, just imagine you have a guitar, you're playing, you make a mistake, and you hit stop. Well, there's the cursor. Now you need to take your hand off the guitar, go to the mouse, reorient the mouse where you want it to be, and it's just extra clicks and extra time, okay? So the thing that I changed here was the behavior of when I hit stop on my spacebar, you can see here, and I hit stop, it goes back to the beginning, all right? So it's usually in the transport option or something like that, which is on stop, the cursor will go back to the start position. Actually, I could probably just show that to you. Yeah, transport, and it's literally here, return to start position on stop. So this saves a lot of time when you have the guitar there. You make a mistake, you can press stop, and with one hand you can go stop, delete that take, and re-record all with one hand, and you can pretty much stay in the flow of recording. The second thing I've changed is how the input monitoring works. So in Cubase here, if we look here, we have the record button and we have the input monitoring. Input monitoring just means that when you play, the sound will travel and it will output through the DAW. If this is off, you'll play, but you won't get any output. Now, the stock settings here in Cubase make it that you have to physically turn this on, okay? When you're recording and playing, that's fine. But when this is on, you don't hear what is being played. I can show that to you. So if I have the input monitoring on and I press play, I can't hear the guitars. So that would mean, once again, I would have to go in here and click, turn this off, and press play. Cool, and then come back here and turn it back on. It's just a lot of extra clicking. But in Cubase, there is a function called tape style monitoring. And what this allows me to do is just hit the record button, automatically enables input monitoring. Now, when I press play, it'll automatically disable input monitoring, so I'll hear what I just played. So this allows me, once again, to cut down on the amount of extra clicks and things that I need to do. It just helps me record faster. These are 2 settings that I would recommend that you would change, or somehow find the same functionality in your DAW so that you can do that. And this one is going to be under VST and auto monitoring tape machine style. So those are the 2 options in Cubase that I changed to make recording a lot easier, especially by myself when I'm recording guitars. Now let's talk about setting up these 2 tracks. Okay, so I have 2 tracks here. You can see one is panned all the way to the left, one is panned all the way to the right. This is what is called double tracking. And double tracking is how you create the wide wall of sound of guitars. You cannot just copy and paste the track and then copy and paste the take and then pan it. Let me show you what I mean. So this is the wrong way to do it, how I'm going to show you right now. So let's just go ahead and copy this right here. So I have this same, now this is the exact same performance. Let's copy it on this track, okay? So you're thinking, okay, it's the same performance here. This one is panned to the left. This one is panned to the right. I should be getting a stereo image, right? Well, watch what happens. Ironically, all I've done is double the track and it goes mono, okay? This is because the audio information is exactly the same and it's just stacking on top of one each other. There are no minute differences in the audio performance which will create the wideness. So you cannot just copy paste and then put it on 2 separate tracks, okay? So you have to record twice on 2 separate tracks and then pan them left and right. From here, you want to put this in a group track or a bus track, which means that we're taking these 2 tracks and we're telling both of these tracks to go to this single track here, okay? Which allows us to do what's called stereo processing. Now, back in the before times, amp simulators and stuff like that were mono only, which meant that you literally had to have an amp simulator on every single track and whatever else that you were using. As technology got better, they started introducing stereo processing, which means you can take both of these tracks, which are my guitars here, and my camera's here, but you can't see it, but you can see the orange track here are my guitars. You could do stereo processing, so stereo enable it, which meant you could take 2 tracks, send it to a bus group, and then it'll process both tracks in a stereo format. Why is this a good thing? This is a great thing because it cuts down on the amount of plugins that you would have to use. For example, if you were double tracking and it was mono only, you would have 2 amp simulators, which meant you would have 2 plugins taking CPU, okay? And again, when the computers weren't as good, this could have been a bit of a problem. These days, it shouldn't be that big of a problem, but still, we have stereo processing capabilities, so we should definitely use them. So what you want to do is you create the 2 tracks and you put them into a bus. I'll show you what that looks like right now. When you are inserting your tracks, you want to make sure that they are reading your guitar input, all right? So if I go to my inputs here, I have set up inputs to tell me what I have, and I'll show you why. So here I have my Apollo here, my mic line HIZ1, that is my guitar input. This is a mono track, okay? Mic line number 2, that's for this microphone here just above me that you can't see. I've done this because if I go to insert a track, I have it called DI, so I know what it is. Here's what it looks like normally. Here are all the possible inputs and outputs that I could use with this audio interface. This is confusing if you've only just seen this for the first time. So obviously, I know that I would just need mic line 1 for a guitar. But if you have the option to create input and output configuration and connections like this and create presets like I've done, highly recommend it. And that way you can name it. You could literally go like, you could just name this rhythm guitar, and then when you go to insert the track, you just go rhythm guitar, you know what that is, okay? Also, a nice byproduct of that is you can see the input here is called DI. So I know what input I'm using on my audio interface because it's named this way. Now, to insert the 2 tracks, however you do this in your DAW, you just want to insert 2 audio tracks. I have mine as a DI. I come down here to DI. And then it's a mono, so I change it to mono, okay? And then I have 2 tracks, and then I add 2 tracks. Let's just put these down here just so we can see them. Rename them, so I just go pretty simple, rhythm left, rhythm right. I pan them straight away, so I come up here to my panning options, and I pan them straight away. It's just good to do this straight away so that it's done. Now I know that I want to bus these right away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a group track or a bus track. You can do it a number of different ways. I have a keyboard shortcut to do that in Cubase. So it's Control-Command-G for group track. And here it comes up. Now this is going to be a stereo configuration because I have more than one track going to it. So I click stereo, and then the audio outputs means that from this bus, where should this bus send the audio information? So it should send it to the submix, okay? And then we will create it inside your folder and add track. So now we see here group 5. If I solo this, we can see that these are soloed and these are not, okay? And then everything after the submix also gets soloed, obviously. If I mute this, these tracks are muted, okay? So this is a great way to test to make sure that the 2 tracks are connected to the bus track. And then obviously you want to name this something indicative of what it actually is. So rhythm guitars, for example, okay? Everything so far so good. All right, now I have these in folder tracks. You can do the same thing. I have a keyboard shortcut, Control-Command-F for folder, puts it in the folder, and name it whatever. And this just helps if I want to move things around quickly. You know, I don't need to select multiple tracks. I can hide them, things like that, okay? So after this part, we want to insert the amp simulator or whatever it is we're going to use. Now, like I say, I think we should do this on the bus and take advantage of stereo processing. So we just come down here to the bus and we just pick whatever one, you know, whatever thing that we want to use. Let's go with, let's see, what's the other one that I recommended? Let's do this one. So let's do the Solidus VS8100 from Audiority, all right? Audiority is a plugin that automatically detects mono or stereo signals. So if we make this a little bit bigger so we can see here. Okay. We have everything that we need here. We have a gate, we have the overdrive pedal, we have a boost, actually the amp, EQ, and then a cab section. So this is an entire suite. So you wouldn't need to install another cabinet impulse response loader if you didn't want to here. All right. Okay. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that since we're on the stereo bus here, we need to make sure that any plugin that we use is definitely stereo. For example, if we want to use the Ignite NAD IR, we want to make sure that the routing, you see down here it says mono. We always want to make sure the routing says stereo, okay? If you select a preset, for example, like, oh, you set it to stereo, then you're like, oh, let me see what this other preset does. Always check to make sure that the routing is on stereo. If you don't do this, you'll kind of get the same result of what I just showed you when you copy pasted performances on the different tracks and pan them. So if you have older plugins, for example, like the TS999 from Ignite Amps has a little button there, M and S, meaning mono and stereo. So you always, if you run into the situation where you're playing and it just sounds like everything's down the middle, go back to the bus track and make sure all of your plugins have stereo mode enabled. Okay, most of the newer plugins are going to have it automatic. For example, like the 8100 here, it's going to be automatic. It'll just detect if it's on a mono or stereo track, but some of them do not. So always make sure that you have your plugins in stereo mode. All right. So let's just go ahead and nuke all this because we already have everything installed. Or not installed, but here. Alright, save this. So, once the tracks are ready, you are ready to record. Now, a couple of things, alright? I always recommend to record with drums. I'm using the ELE kit here from Glenn Fricker. It's pretty good, I have to admit. Now, the reason why I say you need to use drums when you're recording guitar parts is because that the drum beats are going to change the way you play the guitar. If you are just recording to the metronome, you may technically be in time, but once you start adding drum beats and grooves, they're not gonna groove together. So the guitars will be in time, but it's based on a static metronome, whereas the drums might be trying to add some groovy flavor to something that you're trying to play, and it won't make any sense. So what you might have to do is you might just have to record the guitar parts to the metronome and then go back and do the drums and then re-record the guitars. Or what you can do alternatively, which is what I do, is I'll play the guitar part and then I'll write the drums and then play with the drums and continue writing the drums, just to get everything down. All right. So that's one of the things I highly recommend. So let's just move this all the way over. All right. And we are going to get rid of all of this. Okay. Since we are ready to record, really the last thing we want to check is our buffer setting. So to do that in Cubase, we go to Studio Setup, and then we click on the audio system and then our audio interface, and we click on the control panel. And then we see the core audio device settings, buffer size. This is how we control our latency. Latency is king when you're recording digital with your guitar through your interface. This is how you're going to be able to stay in time. And when people talk about latency, i.e., there's like a gap between when you hit the string and when the audio does the full round trip through the interface, through the plugins, into the DAW output through the monitors. That's like the round trip. You want to keep that delay as little as possible. All right. And the lower you can go with your buffer setting, the better it's going to be. I tend to record at 128, even 64 sometimes. Your audio interface may not go this low. It's okay. The one thing that you really want to try and avoid as much as possible is recording on 512 or higher. I mean, there's going to be a noticeable delay, and you're going to have a hard time staying in sync with what you're hearing and what is being played. And the issue is going to be that you're going to play the guitar, but the round trip, you'll hear it, after you played it, and your hand and your head are going to be like, what the hell is going, and then you'll lose it. That's just the way it goes. Okay, so try and set this as low as you can go with as far as your computer can handle it, so you don't have any artifacts or things like that. And artifacts are just anything that sounds like digital breakup, or the DAW might just stop playback completely. There might be called what's a dropout. It'll be like, no, it's not working. We can't handle all this information at once. Dropout. Okay, if that's happening to you, walk this back up. Just go to 192. Maybe that'll be good for you. 256, I mean, not the best, but 256 will work. And you know, if you're stuck doing 512, then that's what happens. I've been there, okay? Not a fun time, all right? So once this is set to 128, we can close this. We are good to go, all right? If you forget to check this and you start playing and recording and you notice there's a huge latency, or like, you know, from what you're hearing, it's most likely due to the buffer setting, okay? Buffer setting might also be called block size, depending on the DAW that you're using, all right? So literally, we're good to go here. So I'm going to grab the guitar and plug in and see if we're ready to go. Okay, now that we have the guitar, I recommend starting with a new pick. I use these Dunlops, these extra sharp 1.35 millimeters, and I like these very fine point tips because there's a lot of attack when you're doing tremolo type stuff. So grab a new pick, and in the best case scenario, if you're doing like album tracking, you know, make sure the strings are good to go, and tune a lot and tune often. Thankfully, I have an Evertune bridge, so I'm in tune, so I never have to worry about that when I'm using this guitar. How much should you tune, or how often? That really depends on you. If you just want to get the demo done and get the idea out, I generally don't care personally. But if I'm doing anything for like a final, like I'm doing final tracking for whether it's an EP, an album, or a song of mine, I'm tuning almost before every take. If you go out of tune microtonally as you record, you'll hear it and it'll sound bad and it'll become very washy. So the great way to test if we have signal and everything is going good is we just enable input monitoring, hit a couple power chords, we're good to go. Now there's one final thing we want to double check, and that is we want to double check our input into the DAW. So we want to go to our DI here, and we want to check what kind of level are we getting into the DAW. So I'm looking right here. This is about minus 6 dB. This is 6 on the DAW. I tried to keep my level around here. Okay, good to go. What you don't want to do if this is too high is move this fader. This does nothing. This is just controlling the volume that's already inside the DAW. If you want to change the input gain, you need to use your interface, all right? Just search your interface, and there should be a gain knob on there. Just smash the strings until you get about minus 6 dB-ish, give or take a little bit, okay? So we've double checked our input, and now we're pretty much ready to record. The last thing I want to talk about is the metronome. Most DAWs you should be able to customize your metronome a little bit. Now this song is at 180 BPM, and the metronome sounds like this. Oh, turn it on. Not bad, and for playing I mean, that works for there, but once we start getting a bit more notey when we do, I like to set the metronome to double time because it gives me an extra beat in the middle of the measure. So it's just easier for me to stay synchronized when I'm doing like 16th notes or anything a bit more notey like that. This is a very powerful feature that you should definitely take advantage of, especially if you're doing something like 115 BPM. Setting it to double time will just increase the amount of clicks and it'll make it easier to stay in time. Recording guitars, okay, it can be a time-consuming process. You want to stay as relaxed as possible. Just go with the flow. Sometimes you'll nail it in one take. Sometimes it'll take much longer. That's just the way it goes sometimes. So try and stay relaxed. Don't tense up. Don't get into a body position where you can hear it, right? You're not flowing. You're not relaxed. It doesn't sound good even when you're recording. You just want to play the guitar, okay? And I talk about this in the PDF, red light fever. Red light fever is just, you're playing, everything's great, but as soon as you hit record, it just goes to shit. Okay, and this is just a mental game. The best way to do this, especially now in the digital age, is just record all the time. Just record, and record some more. Just get comfortable recording, all right? And once you get comfortable recording, it doesn't matter anymore. You'll be like recording or you're not recording, who cares? It just, you don't have the mental block anymore, all right? So, and this is the great case in point. I just played this last night before I went to bed, and I have to play the riff again to remember what I played. So I'm pretty much recording this on the fly. Okay. All right, should be pretty easy. Now, one thing that I recommend to do is to give yourself a like a 4-beat count in. So don't do something like this, because you might end up getting confused. So a nice one full measure before you start recording seems to work the best. Okay, and for me today, it's, what is it? It's 33 degrees in my room right now, so I'm extremely sweaty. So I'm gonna have to adjust my playing a little bit so my arm isn't always sitting on the body of the guitar, because we're sticking. You know, I can't move. So I'm gonna have to be a bit more cognizant, good God, of what I'm doing on the guitar. All right, so let's start recording. Mistake number 1, I forgot to unmute the drums and the bass, but here's a great example. I pressed stop, the cursor went back to the start position. In Cubase, I can just hit backspace, bam, and then I could just record again. See how fast and easy that is? It's one finger, easy, and I don't even have to do anything. But let's go ahead and unmute the drums. I don't care about the bass right now, so let's do this. Okay, awesome. So what I'll do is I'll just trim this right away, because this is a different riff and I don't care. Now I know what you're saying. Oh, you're gonna record in chunks, huh? Well, that's not right. I don't care. I don't care what you think, and neither should you care about what other people think. First of all, I'm actually not totally crippled, but my hands, I have nerve damage, so I can't play the guitar in one sitting for about longer than a minute before I can't physically move my fingers anymore. So I don't care what you think. Second, when I'm recording, I'm much more focused on playing cleanly and precisely. I want to make sure that riff is good to go. Later on, you can practice the song in full, hopefully with your band, and then get it more tight in a cohesive manner, right? So now we're going to double track this. It's going to be the exact same riff, so let's do it. Okay, so on guitar 2, I know that I did a palm mute little thing there, so I went ahead and did it. And then I'll just walk this back like so. Oh, that's too much. Let's do quarters. I'll walk this back, or like that. And then we walk it like this. Now it's always important to listen to what you've just played. Okay. Couple things you're looking for. Is it in time? Does it groove? Does it make sense? All right. If you're doing this tremolo stuff, or you're doing sort of any complicated picking, if you're not in time or congruent with each other, it'll be quite obvious. All right. So let's move on to the next riff. This is done, and we record. Messed up. Now, I don't remember. Okay. One thing that I do recommend that I try to do is I try to play at least the first 2 notes of the following riff, so that when you chop this up, the guitar has that sound in your hand that you're transitioning to the next riff. So let's actually do that again. Messed up. Okay, so so I just hit the first note. That'll be fine. Bring that in. Now there's nothing happening on the second guitar. There's a big old fat chord. So here, let's do the second track. So having that extra click in the metronome helps me hit this on time. Let's try this one more time. Okay, cool. Moving along. So all right, cool. Off to the next riff, which is bum 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 bum. All right, let's do it. And then this is kind of what it looks like when I record. I just get into the flow, off to the next, off to the next, off to the next. Make a mistake, space bar, backspace, record, off to the next. And then you can really get into the rhythm like this. Because I'm not thinking about, oh my God, am I going to nail it? I'm just thinking about recording. I'm just thinking about playing the guitar and getting the track recorded. If I make a mistake, who cares? If I get really frustrated, I'll put the guitar down and go do something else for a couple minutes, okay? So this next part is very important to get tight because it's palm muted 16. So if they're out of sync, we're gonna know about it. So let's get started. Forgot the metronome. Okay, so we can see pretty decent. Let's see what it sounds like when we double it. We might have to re-record this. I think I can play it a little bit tighter, okay? And this is very important. When you're recording yourself, don't half-ass it. Don't edit that. Play the part, all right? Even if you have to go 4 bars and then 4 bars again, just play the part. It'll be faster than editing it, and it'll sound better. Metronome. So I started late. I'll do it again. Okay, this one's looking all right. Let's try the next track. Okay. Yeah, let's do the here. Let's try it one more time. For the sake of this video, I'm not going to sit here and do this until I nail it. I'm just showing you the process. This is what it really looks like. And sometimes you'll play the same riff about 100 times. And that's okay. Okay, so we'll just keep it like this because we can't go on doing this forever. But you can see here, I just start lagging behind and then I start getting back in time right around here. So honestly, what I would do is I would break this up into 2 chunks. All right, but we're just going to move on for now. Next riff, I believe, is just... So let's do it. Missed the note, you can see it right there. piano again, you can see it right there. And this is I am rushing through this to finish the video. All right, so the interesting thing that I really wanted to show you more than anything else is not how awesome, recording is. I actually just wanted to show the process of how I record guitars. And I make mistakes just like anybody else does. And playing tight and recording and making sure everything sounds good is always going to be the most important part of the equation of whether something sounds good or not, okay? So everything here is recorded. I'm going to put the guitar away. We're going to skip ahead real quick, and I'm going to talk very quickly about processing guitars. Okay, for full disclosure, here are the guitar parts I just recorded, and let's just nuke these, all right? So no studio magic going on here. All right, so in the PDF, I talk about the plugins that you need, and they are only an EQ, a multiband compressor, and a limiter. To get started, that's all you need, okay? Everything else is going to be in, what IR and stuff you decided to go with first. So let's open the guitars here. So let's press play, see what we got. Okay, so this section here would have to get re-recorded. That's my opinion, but let's talk about mixing now. Okay, so everything that we have here in the plugin suite, this is my tone. Nothing about my tone is going to change once I start doing processing. You guys have to remember and realize that. You can't change your guitar tone with EQ. It doesn't happen. You have a sonic signature, and that's what it is. Okay, all we can do is clean it up. All right, and just to prove this to you, you guys already saw that I used stock EQ. This is stock Cubase EQ. All right, it doesn't matter. I'm going to show you guys that this works, and it's about knowing what to do instead of buying plugins. All right, so Guitar Tone Master guys, you say it with me. What do we do first? That's right, we do our filters first. Okay, so let's do single EQ number 1. Okay, I put this right in my PDF guide. I tend to cut at, come on, why is this not EQ band? Because I'm silly. I tend to do a cut at from 12 to 24 dB at 100. Because we have a bass guitar here, guys. Bass guitar, very important, okay? Your guitar is not doing anything down here that the bass guitar can't do better, okay? Now, up top, we're going to have a very interesting situation. So 24, you're gonna read online. I'm telling you, you're gonna read people say never cut below 10K. Well, let me tell you something. Digital guitars, that rule does not apply. I am cutting around 7. Okay, you've seen me do this. I'm not giving. This is not new information here. Does this work? Good God. And this is just my OCD because I want to have it exactly at 7. Fine, we'll leave it there, okay? These two filters are the most important thing that you're going to do with your guitar tone, and we're already going to hear a massive difference. I'm going to solo this just so that you can hear it. Normally, I do all of my guitar mixing these days with the full mix playing. Why? Because of context. In time, you'll understand that. I can't explain everything in this video. It's all white noise. And if I get rid of this, So we've made the tone a little bit darker, but we've gotten rid of a lot of that digital harshness up top. And then obviously down here, it's literally all low rumble. That's just going to make our mix muddy. You don't need it. We can get rid of it. All right. I made a video a couple of months ago. I think it was right before I had to leave about my secret EQ cut, and that remains the same. My secret EQ cut, it's not really a secret anymore because I told all of you. It's going to be around 400-ish. Okay, and I'm just doing this blind right now. We'll have to change it. Oh, that's not what I wanted. That's Q. You can tell I never use this plugin. Just cleaning up the low mids that are always a cardboard boxy nastiness with guitars. So you can hear a drastic difference. The one thing that you've noticed though is that the guitar tone exactly the same. All we're doing now is bringing that tone more up to the front, and we're hiding nasty frequencies. One last thing I'll do here is I'll probably do one very specific cut. Why is this not? Oh, look at that. Yeah. Very obvious. Now, you're going to find these in guitar tones all over the place. I call them just an indecent whistle that happens no matter what note is being played on the guitar. And that's the extent I'm going to do the EQ, because there's really no reason to do more. The more EQ you do in a guitar, the shittier a guitar is going to sound. Massive difference. Okay, now what would we use the multiband for? Let me show you. The multiband compressor is going to be the Andy Sneap C4 trick, which I also did a video on that you can find on the channel. It is exactly what it sounds like. We're just going to go a certain range, or like 90 to 300. I'm setting the range right now, and I'm going to do a couple of dB gain reduction during palm mutes and woofy woofy parts of the guitar. Now, when you do this correctly, you're going to control the low mid band of the guitars. They will become more clear. And I don't know if you noticed, but it's like the bass guitar just all of a sudden went boop. Hi guys, I'm here now, because we're controlling that aspect of the rhythm guitar, and now the bass can come through. We haven't done anything to the bass yet. Okay, so this is why it's very important to understand what you're doing with mixing guitars. I'm sorry that I can't go more in depth with this, but there's just so much to talk about when the video would be forever, okay? The last thing that we're going to do here is we're just going to put a brick wall limiter on here, and this is just to take care of any errant transients that might be coming up above the threshold of the guitar. I'm literally just looking for it to tickle. I just want to tickle it. And this is going to make sure that if I turn the guitar up or down in the DAW, this is fixed. Nothing's going to happen here. Okay, so let's just turn this on. Okay, and there you go. The stock plugins, when you know what to do, are perfectly fine. Okay, so yeah, that's it. All right. Now, the free PDF, like I said, is down below. Okay, if you already kind of have the graphs of this, but you think the free PDF, like you already have all that, then I highly recommend Guitar Tone Mastery, where I do this for hours with various different amp simulators. Every step of the process, detailed, like this whole mixing thing. I think the video I talk about this is an hour in itself. Every single little step, what I'm exactly listening for and why. But really, the main thing about the whole point of this video that I wanted to do is you've just started recording. How do you get started? Bam, here you go. Okay, I hope you found the video useful. If you did, please, let me know. Again, if you already knew all this and stuff, please leave comments down below for people who are just getting started. Help them out. Let's make this the most useful, how to record guitars at home video on YouTube and on the internet. That would be awesome. All right. Whew. Well, it is. What is it in here now? Oh, good. It's 34 degrees in here. Awesome. So I'm doing great. I hope you're doing great. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Have a good one.